Good morning, friends, and welcome to Reedwood. Welcome here in this building and welcome online. Hither and yon, we're all welcome. It's a delight to be here. Mark asked me this past week if I would do the call to worship, the welcome and call to worship, because this is Reformation Sunday, and he knows that I love everything Reformation. Reformation, Martin Luther, it's so incredibly colorful. I mean, from the names like Bugenhagen, or one of my favorites is Andreas Rudolf Bodenstein von Karlstadt. It's not only colorful, it's a bit humorous. Karlstadt was a friend of Martin Luther, and he was a bit off the wall, a bit extreme. And Luther said Karlstadt swallowed the Holy Spirit, feathers and all. So it's not only colorful and humorous, the Reformation is extremely important. The theological awakening that occurred, one, Mark, you and I are blessed to have, when Luther contested the idea of priestly celibacy. Priests could not marry. In fact, it was taken so seriously that they believed, the church taught, that if a priest and a nun conceived, the offspring would be the Antichrist. And so when Luther married Katie, and she was with child, he's a medieval man. He's got to be a little bit afraid, just in case that's true. So that was one of Luther's gifts to the church, that priestly celibacy is no longer honored. But for me, the primary contribution of Luther is breaking free from the obligation of works in order to gain God's favor. And Luther's doctrine, we say it in Latin, sola fide, faith alone. And faith is not a work that we can produce. Faith is given to us by God. Faith alone. So freeing. Well, Luther became, because of these views and other views, he became a condemned man. A price was put on his head, both by the church and the state. There's an interesting example of Christian nationalism. And it would have cost Luther his life had he not been given refuge for almost a year, hidden away in a castle. So Luther then married and did have a family and ultimately was protected, but there would always have had to be that fear that the church would catch him and burn him, which was the fate of his predecessor, Jan Hus, 100 years earlier. In fact, there's the saying that at one point, when Luther knew that he was a condemned man and was preaching, at one point he said, "The song became too high for my voice." And he was reflecting on the death of Jan Hus 100 years earlier. So he was considered by some to be the Saxon Hus. But he survived. How did he survive? His belief in God. And one of his favorite psalms was the 46th Psalm. And I'll read that to you because it was the foundation of the hymn that Luther wrote. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, God lifts his voice, and the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. That was the foundation for Luther's hymn. A mighty fortress is our God. And it comes out of his being sought. It comes out of his personally finding the refuge of God in the midst of chaos. And I'm thinking, how parallel to our time today, with our political upheaval, with our binary views, and yet God is our fortress. A sister psalm that I'll read, and you'll be hearing this and seeing the text in a moment when Shirley plays the prelude. But a sister psalm is Psalm 27. And you'll see it's very connected to the fortress psalm that Luther quoted. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. The war break out against me. Even then I will be confident. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all my days. That's the God we worship. Join me in prayer. Our Lord, it's good for us to become quiet in your presence. Set aside the conflict of our nation, of our world, and realize that you are our security, our fortress. May that truth penetrate us deeply so that we can become all that you have in mind for us and all that we desire. We worship you. Amen.
Good morning. We have two readings this morning. The first is from Matthew 11:28 to 29. The second is from George Fox. Come to me all you that are weary and all carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And then from George Fox, be patterns, be examples in all countries, places, islands, nations, wherever you come. Take your carriage, and life may preach among all sorts of people and to them. Then you will come to walk cheerfully over the world, answering that of God and everyone. I just have to say, George Fox English and where to take a break when quoting it is a little different for today's ears. But the truth of what he is saying resonates.
Shirley's prelude had the kind of the text there, God is my light and my salvation. Does anyone want to call out what that's a direct quote of? It's in the Psalms. Psalms 27:1, God is my light and my salvation. And then if you notice that that song, Trust the Light, was written by, partially written by one of our very own, Kara Wilkin. You notice the designation of the writer. So John, if you're watching, please give a hug to Kara as we are thinking of her, as we just got done singing her song. So thank you very much on that. Well, in our technological culture, where more and more can be done from this little thing here, and as well as our laptops, a lot of things can be done on these things, you know that? Paying your car insurance, booking your vacation. You don't even got to be on a computer, on a desktop computer anymore. You just book it on your phone. Purchasing groceries to be delivered to your home on your phone. You don't got to go grocery shopping anymore. Or at least I like grocery shopping. It's kind of therapeutic. I like looking for the deals. And there's a part of me that feels kind of cheated whenever the grocery delivery ends up on our front porch. I thought, I think I could have got a deal on some of those things. However, there is one thing, there's certain features that have slipped through and have managed to avoid and elude kind of the technological revolution. And one thing that I've noticed that hasn't fully crossed over into the digital realm is wedding invitations. Ever notice that? Wedding invitations. It's not that they couldn't be digitized, but there's something about a physical wedding invitation that carries a little bit more weight and meaning. Think about it for a moment. Even the physicality of the invitation is ornately cut paper, and it's embossed. It's origami folded paper with ribbons and butterflies and unicorns and gnomes that's with sparkle confetti that spills out everywhere whenever you open the envelope that it comes in. And you might say that I have some kind of anxiety that I hold in myself from opening wedding invitation envelopes, because I know what's coming. It's, oh my gosh, it's this thing that could unfold at any moment. There could be like these kind of spring-loaded butterflies come out of the envelope and stuff gets everywhere. It's a wedding invitation. Why hasn't that become digitized at this point? I don't know. But, people continue to want to get married, and they continue to want to invite their friends and family, but this is a physical thing, a physical invitation that they want to give to their family, friends, neighbors, and loved ones. This is an important moment for a couple that is in love, because the moment carries weight and meaning to see two people in love dedicate their lives to one another before their family, friends, and God, and it is a significant and a life-changing event. The invitation. It's got to be special. It's got to be memorable. And there has to be some sparkle that gets caught in your carpet for months later on. The invitation. Well, as we heard read there in Matthew's gospel, we encounter some of the most tender, some of the most inviting, and one could say motherly words spoken by Jesus. As far as his audience in the narrative goes, that is the crowds, he's speaking to the crowds in that chapter in Matthew 11. And who he was speaking to, we're not sure why they were really following him. It could have been very much a mixed bag of curiosity, suspicion. What is he saying, and where's the wrong thing that he's going to say? It could be entertainment. It seemed like some fantastic things happened whenever Jesus was around. So let's check it out. Curiosity, some entertainment in the ancient world back then. It simply could have been hunger of why you follow this rabbi around, because it seems like food seemed to play a big part of Jesus' ministry and method. Wherever Jesus was, there seemed to be food that broke out oftentimes. Perhaps it was a need for health care and healing. That's why you followed Jesus. And yet out of this came an invitation. Within this following, out of this came an invitation to bind oneself to Jesus' teaching. Or as he says, yoke yourself to my wisdom and to my instruction. There's an open invitation that Christ gives. Here again, Jesus offers a loving invitation to connect a connection that's both deeply personal and universal and open to all. It's an invitation to respond to the divine spark within each of us, where, according to the Gospels, at the very heart of every person lies a small seed given and sustained by grace, a gift of being a part of creation. And early Quaker leaders noted that this inward seed that was within each person, and they would instruct others to pay attention to that seed and take care of that. Don't suffocate it. Let it grow. Give it some room. Give it some space to grow. Let it increase in your life. Grow the seed of God that is within you. When you read the Gospels also, you will notice that Jesus speaks to the crowds often about the basic realities of their lives. He talks about their work. He talks about their relationships and even nature and how God is speaking through all of these. And still notably here in this section, in that section in Matthew 11, 28 through 30, he doesn't try to skip over the harsher realities of life either. It's not just all unicorns, gnomes, sparkle, and roses. He talks about the harsher realities of life. How living is often fraught with difficulty, frustration, weariness, and exhaustion. He says, that's why he says, "Come unto me, you who are weary and heavy laden." And if we're going to be honest, we too are not immune to this happening in our own lives of being weary and heavy laden. We know what that feels like. We've been there or are currently there, to be weary, to be heavy laden in life. I've often wondered and suspected whether our tendency towards, at least I'm speaking for myself, towards distractibility, our tendency towards overwork and overconsumption of any kind is an outward sign that we are searching for something that can lead us to some kind of inward rest and lasting peace that won't go away from us. That in overdoing it, we're looking for something. There's a reason underneath that I need to pay attention to and to consider. And within this search and within this frantic searching, the longer this eludes us, the more we can feel it compounds into isolation. We can feel isolated then from one another. And with this compounding of a sense of isolation, we then settle into a deep loneliness that settles upon our hearts like a perpetual dark cloud over a cursed fairy tale castle. I think this phenomenon is what the Beatles were singing about. In the song Eleanor Rigby, we all know that song, and how the chorus poses the question, all the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? This is a difficult place to be, and it's not something that's alien to our own experience. I think each and every one of us can relate to this on one level or another. It's often, and truth be told, it's often in such conditions that our pathologies and addictions find a root to grow in. When we are held and captive in that space. where can we go from this place? Is there a place to go from here? Particularly when these realities follow us like unwanted companions on life's journey. It's not as though we invited such companions. It's not even as though what we did ultimately brought these things about. They just simply happened upon us. And we find that we're journeying and we have a companion that we would rather not have, and yet it's there. I think it's those type of companions and those type of situations that we find ourselves in life. The wisdom of Christ speaks. It's to that thing, to those difficult spaces, those tight spaces in life, that the words of Christ speak and touch upon, because no one else wants to touch it and deal with it. The wisdom of Christ speaks words of life to our situations where we feel stuck, trapped, or even imprisoned. No matter how dire and difficult, Christ utters an eternal invitation. This invitation is not kept in a point in time space, only meant for that time, only spoken once for that context, and from that context we depart. This is an ongoing and an eternal invitation. What is that invitation? It's 3 words. Come unto me. Come unto me. 3 deceptively simple words, and yet they are deep, heart-oriented words that grab your attention because they ask for your soul. They don't even ask they don't ask for your reason. They don't ask for your intellect. They can, but that's not the primary thing. They ask for your soul, and they address you by your name. Come unto me, Christ says. These words are as warm and inviting as a hot meal and a cup of hot chocolate after a cold, rain-soaked hike. Come unto me. Inviting, kind, welcoming, simple words. As I was reading about this section, commentators note that the way Christ is portrayed in this text in Matthew 11, he's portrayed as being a typecast as the ancient personification of wisdom. You know, commentators, their job is to kind of look at the Bible as a whole, and they ask, where else is this term, come unto me? Where else does that show up? It comes up in the Old Testament. A personification of wisdom in the Hebrew Bible tradition that is often called, in the Greek, Sophia. Sophia raises her voice and beckons all people to herself to learn from her and to take her yoke upon themselves to learn the ways of life again. We see that theme rising up in the book of Proverbs. We see it rising up in other books of wisdom in the Old Testament, where Sophia is the one that's saying, come unto me, learn of me. And so the Gospels recycle that imagery and say, that's Jesus too. If this is so, what's cool about that is we have a feminine image of Jesus calling the simple, the humble, and the spiritual infants and children to himself. Isn't that cool? Sophia, always in the Old Testament, wisdom is always feminine. And we have that feminine imagery and appeal popping up in the New Testament, where Jesus is repeating those words of invitation, of wisdom. So, at the start of the message, we heard read by Suzanne the prophetic advice and challenge of George Fox, quote, "To be patterns, examples in all places, answering that of God in everyone." Thanks, George. Thanks for that advice. Poetic, even a little syntactically difficult to read. You know, these are winsome words. But as I read those words, the truth is, I can only answer God's call as much as I have responded to it within myself and allowed this work then to unfold in me. How can I answer that of God in anyone else if I myself have failed to do that for myself? There's that question of, have I responded to the grand invitation of the Christ? I want to end with a story, a humorous story, actually. Megan, my wife, works, many of you know, in the postpartum unit of a local hospital where she and her band of coworkers sometimes talk about someone that needs to come to the truth and reality of their situation, of what just happened to them. I overhear this talk that when they're together, and they talk about work and, kind of talking shop, and they talk about moments of, well, they have to have some truth talks with people. Many times those truth talks are not the moms that are in postpartum now recovering from having just given birth. Oftentimes, and not to pick on guys too much, it's dads that are not stepping up to help mom. Where mom is getting up at all hours of the night, dad is over there in the chair snoring. Or even worse, they have their earbuds in and are playing video games while mom is tending to the baby. So they have to have an intervention where they speak some hard truths to dad. They have to let dad know what is going on and what just happened to them. That perhaps a life of sleeping in, playing their Xbox, or watching sports at any time they're not working, that has now become a thing of the past for dad. That time has been shed. But they're having trouble reconciling with that. Playfully, do you know what they call these type of talks and interventions? Come to Jesus moments. Where perhaps life has changed before you, but you're having a hard time keeping up with what just happened. It's like you want to keep living the old way, where the old way has to go by the wayside. You have to come to terms of living your life in light of the truth of what just happened to you. And oftentimes dads are the ones that need to hear it. The come to Jesus talks, the come to Jesus moments. And if we're honest and truthful, that happens to us too, doesn't it? We have times in life where we're living in a way that we're not reconciled and we're not living into the truth of the moment. We have to, as the scripture says, or as the nurses there up on the hill at the hospital say, come to Jesus. We respond to Jesus' invitation for different reasons. Sometimes it's a need of rest. Sometimes it's for peace. Other times it's shaping up and living more fully into the truth. Whatever the case may be, The invitation is open eternally and ongoing. Whatever those reasons may be, we know in faith that the Spirit is willing and ready to always, always meet you there in that space when you simply come. As we go into a time of centering down in open worship, when you consider Jesus' words, "Come unto me," what is your response to this? Is it openness? Is it resistance? Note that. Secondly, how have you answered to that of God in yourself recently? Fox charges us to answer that of God in others. But before that, how have I answered to that of God in me? Because whenever I answer to that of God in myself, I am then ready to give that away to others. Let's go into a time where, in the silence, Spirit meets us where we're at, where we're really at. And let us hold that silence. If you feel prompted of Spirit to share something publicly, Carol has a microphone. We would love to hear that. Friends online, if you feel prompted of Spirit to share in vocal ministry, make sure you're unmuted. Responding to Jesus' words, "Come unto me." How does that resonate? How have I answered to that of God in myself before I can go and share that with others? Let's center down, friends.